Welcome one and all to another one of Nathan Bell's commentary videos. Today, Nate wants to talk to you about Kyle Sandilands.
Yeah. Well, I've been thinking about Kyle Sandilands a bit. I read some articles about his antics a couple of years ago. What I really want to say is I really don't like people who make a career out of demeaning and belittling people. I've had enough of this culture in this country and on this planet of mocking people and laughing at the expense of other people. What it is, it's people who enjoy inflicting suffering on others. So I see very little difference between killing someone because you find their suffering pleasurable and ridiculing someone because you find their suffering pleasurable. You know, if you find people's suffering pleasurable, I consider you a psychopath, and that's what I think of Kyle Sandilands. Now, jokes amongst mates is fine, but when you're insulting strangers, strangers shouldn't be going around insulting strangers. We shouldn't be insulting and attacking people we don't know. So Kyle Sandilands came under fire for his remarks about the disabled Olympics. People who are living lives of hardship and disadvantage don't need to be ridiculed. We should be an empathetic people. We should be an empathetic, understanding population in this country, and that's what we want to enforce. And Kyle Sandilands was criticised by one of the nation's regulators as having broken the broken a code of acceptable conduct for on-air discussion, and I agree with that. And it's good to see in the last few decades that we've set some standards in this country for how we want people to communicate. Freedom of speech gives you the right to discuss political ideology and political matters. It doesn't give you the right to demean and be hurtful and cruel to other people. So Kyle Sandilands is one of these Australian blokes. He's a cruel man. He enjoys seeing others suffer, and he makes a living off causing suffering and saying hurtful, harmful things to other people that damage their psychology and damage their self-esteem. And I've had enough of that attitude in this country. I want to live in a country where people are friendly. We should live in a friendly country where we communicate with decency and where we lift each other up and we say positive things to each other. So New South Wales Police denied Kyle Sandilands a gun licence because he had criminal associates and because he was deemed not proper person to own a gun. I agree with that. So I praise New South Wales Police for knocking him back. He's a hateful man with a hateful psychology. We don't want people like him having guns. Really, we don't want anyone having guns, but we certainly don't want hateful people with hateful psychologies having guns. So I praise New South Wales Police for knocking Kyle Sandilands back for a gun licence. Kyle Sandilands was quoted as saying he likes to go to the gun range, point the gun and imagine all the people he hates and then pull the trigger. So that says to me that Kyle Sandilands has fantasies about murdering people. So, who are these guys that fantasize about murdering people all the time? It's these violent men. He's a violent man. He's made threats to reporters who have criticised him in the past. A reporter criticised him for his remarks about the disabled Olympics, and he made threats to that reporter. He's a man who propagates hateful, violent attitudes towards people. So again, it's that question of who we give a platform to. So we have to be careful who we give a platform to. Do we want to give a platform to people who spew hatred and demeaning, cruel, and promote cruelty and harming others as a way of life? But the reality is so many Australians are like this. You look at Australian culture and how we communicate. Most men and women too, communicate in a demeaning, derogatory way, and we want to put a stop to that sort of communication. So I do think we need to think about who we give a platform to in this country, and we need to think about what sort of language is acceptable. Kyle Sandilands was forced to go to classes on sensitivity classes. Well, what that is, sending someone to sensitivity classes is a form of re-education, and I support that. We want to take these hateful, negative, cruel, derogatory, slanderous people, men and women, and we want to force them into re-education skills where they learn to have a productive, good attitude towards other human beings. Because it comes down to the fact that most people in this country don't value other human life. And the way you speak shows whether you value human life. I value human life, so I try not to demean people and slander people and be cruel to people. So the way you speak shows whether you value human life. And men like Kyle Sandilands, who are abusive and devalue people and intentionally humiliate people because they find it pleasurable, need to be sent to schools where they get re-educated and taught to value other human life. So you can call that a communist policy or a Stalinist policy, that's fine. I believe in re-educating people like that. We want to live in a country where each of us Australians values the lives of others, and too many Australians don't value the lives of others and don't care how their actions impact others. It's clear that Kyle Sandilands doesn't care how his actions impact others. In fact, he revels in the fact that his actions hurt others, and he finds that entertaining. So I think we do want to re-educate people like that, men and women who find it entertaining to cause suffering to others. Kyle Sandilands has come under a lot of fire in recent years for saying hurtful, slanderous remarks to people, and I think that's good. And we've set, in the last few decades, we've set some standards in this country of what we want our public figures to communicate like, and regulators have told Kyle Sandilands that his conduct is not acceptable. Now, those rules need to apply to people in the street and in the community as well. Australians need to be expected to communicate in a respectful way with each other. So yeah, that's what I wanted to say about Kyle Sandilands. So drop a comment in the comment section about what you think about Kyle Sandilands.